Hello, everybody. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome the inspiring Francesca Varney, commonly and affectionately known as Frankie, the founder and creator of The Horse Within. Welcome, Frankie.
Hi, Mossy.
Commonly known as Mossy Michelle Moss from Holistic Pillars. I have welcomed and invited Frankie to come along today because we follow very similar paths of corporate to passion projects, etc. And I'm so excited to hear more about The Horse Within, your passion, your career, your background, what's brought you here today. And I think that there's a fantastic opportunity to share stories and share experiences with other people. So, Frankie, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very excited and a little bit nervous. You might also see me go on mute every now and then for clearing of the throat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up in Germany, East Germany. And I've been in Australia for about 13 years now. And I suppose I've spent my whole life with animals, more or less. I didn't grow up in a family of animals, so I sort of had to forge that path, by saving birds and mice and guinea pigs and bunny rabbits, and then at the age of 10 moving on to horses. So and basically that's I suppose that's the origin of The Horse Within, that started out this year, and making my passion my part of what I do, is having spent an awful lot of time with horses from the age of 10, and just in hindsight, more or less having learned a lot through them and from them. At the time, I was just sort of, hanging out with them, riding as much as I could. I was part of a club, a non-for-profit sort of organization, and we regularly had, groups come. And I remember at maybe tender age of 15 or 16 or something like that, I was helping out with a local group coming from an orphanage once a week, and really enjoying that, facilitating that space between the horses and the humans, and me not being in the sort of at the center stage, but being able to bring together those two, the two, the human and the horse, and then noticing how that changed the child or the children, and how that changed their sense of self, and their grounding. And they would come in and be quite nervous, or they've all more or less have had some form of trauma in their lives, and so they would really ground themselves and become very present and slow down and be really curious and really come out of their shells. There were a lot of kids that were really, really shy. And at the time, I didn't understand the psychology behind it. All I felt was like, oh, isn't this amazing? And I went on to do a lot of, competing with horses, which is kind of where I lost a little bit again in hindsight. Or not just a little bit, I really lost touch with why I started, engaging with horses in the first place, and kind of started running down a very narrow path of training, competition, getting angry with my horse if she wasn't doing what I wanted her to, and also being a bit of an angry teenager. I had a few things to work through myself, parents splitting up, and friendship trouble, and school trouble, and all of that. And that was my refuge. not just from a horse point of view, we also were working really hard in these stables. We've had about 40 horses. And man, I was like 14, 15, bringing in hay, cleaning stables, really hard physical work. In hindsight, I'm like, well, we did really, hard work back then. But all of that together really helped me.
I think it's built a strong foundation for you, hasn't it?
It has. Yeah, absolutely. It has. What I'm not so proud of and what I'm still working through is how I was with the horse at times, so I still sit there quite often reflecting on that and going, wow, it's really easy to lose the essence when you're getting onto a performance path. And so I have done a lot of uncovering and rediscovering over the last 20, 30 years, which is part of me coming to this place right now where I'm offering both therapy and learning through my horses.
So you that was in Germany when you had that foundation and you had that childhood and even at a young age you were obviously very aware of what was going on, or there was a lot of growth there with the connection with the other kids and the horses and everything. So you've come out to Australia and you've where are you? You're in Gippsland and you're got your farm.
I landed in Melbourne. Landed in Melbourne with a young family, landed in the suburbs and quickly went, because I had to leave my horse behind, and I gave her into good hands and she lived a long, happy life there. But I always knew I have to find my way back to horses. And we were lucky enough to have a friend on the peninsula with a bit of land who said, why don't you get a little pony for the girls? So my girls would have been 2 and 4 or 3 and 5 or something at the stage. And it's like, oh yeah, I could buy a pony. So this is how I acquired Phoebe, who's now almost 30 years old. And she's our first herd member. She's a little chestnut miniature Shetland mare. And she's traveled with us over the last 12 years or so. And then having her down at the peninsula and making that trip once, twice a week, bringing the girls out and spending a lot of time outside the suburbs of Melbourne, and my kids learning to ride and at the 3 of us always saying, one day we'll have our own farm, won't we? And so we kept saying this. And at the time, I had no idea how I was ever going to make that happen. None of my family back home in Germany even owns property. So this idea of owning property and, having a bit of land was outrageous. And when I was telling the family about, hey, we're fantasizing about this, it was kind of like, outlandish in a way. But I think, over the years and, the marriage breaking up and having to kind of make decisions just for myself and the girls, I was like, why not? Why not go after this? So that's what landed me in South Gippsland on a little 4-acre farm.
It sounds beautiful, but you've also been juggling the corporate world.
Oh yes.
and living on land with your horses and creating your life in Gippsland. How did you what were you doing in the corporate space? Because I'm really interested in this passion and then still having your background in the corporate world and then your additional training in your counselling and things like that. So I'm really keen to know the connection there.
I jumped a few aspects. Well, I landed in the corporate world from a young age. I finished my studies in business management back home in Germany, then went and lived in Ireland for a little bit, and then came back to Germany and just picked up a job. And that job was in the project management office of a big global IT company. And at the time they were acquiring small IT and telephony businesses all over Europe. And so my job, whilst the project management side of things was not that thrilling, what was thrilling for me was the travel. And did a fair bit of traveling at that stage, and got myself into the rhythm of being I suppose in my mid-20s, being part of an American organization. It was all pretty cool. And, IP telephony was crash hot back then. So I was like, woo. I didn't love what I was doing, and I couldn't understand quite at the time what was missing. And then I had the two girls in my late 20s, pretty close to each other. And whilst I had the girls and stayed home for a little bit, I studied just for the fun of it, an online, certificate in psychology, because I'd always had an interest in it, but I didn't want to study psychology as such, but I really wanted to sort of test what's in this genre and this I suppose, profession that could come out of it. And I really, really loved it. And so coming to Australia, when the girls being still pretty little, I was not sure I could just fit back into the corporate world just like that. It almost created, I can still feel it in my body when I think back. It was like, anxiousness in my body, like, how am I going to bridge the demands of the corporate world with having young children, and then the husband traveling and being in a sort of big corporate role as well. And I was like, what on earth am I going to do? And so I started studying a master's in counselling with La Trobe. And at the time, this is a little embarrassing thing. At the time, I thought I was studying coaching. So I got myself into this course, and I was interviewed and everything for it, because it was like in high demand, and I was one of the 25 that got chosen out of 200 or something like that. So I felt pretty special. But there is the word counselling doesn't have a direct translation into German. So for me, it was, I'm studying psychology and therapy, but I'm going to come out of this as a coach. And so I remember sitting there the first week and listening to everybody as we were introducing ourselves. And I was like, I just had a realization. I think I'm in the wrong course. And everyone was like, what's she talking about? And I just, shared what I just shared here. And obviously there was, big laughter and knee slapping. But then one of the tutors, who I'm still in touch with, really wonderful, wonderful person I learned a lot from, he said, well, Francesca, why don't you just stay and wait and see? You're here now. And then I grew into this course over the 2 years, studying full time, had the girls, excuse me, and worked a little bit on the side. And long story short, why I didn't go into therapy at the time is because, in the meantime, I found myself a single mom. Well, I not just found myself, that's what happened. The relationship broke down, and all of a sudden I had to basically completely provide for myself and the children. And this probably sounds really terrible, but I wasn't able to afford a job as a counsellor. With, where we'd chosen to live in Melbourne and having no other means of income, I remember turning down a role that was offered to me that I would have had to dip into my savings to put the girls in child support and childcare. And so I had this realization, oh, damn, I just done this thing that I'm so proud of. I've got a master's degree in counselling, and it was hard to do it in a second language. And then I'm like, I can't actually afford this. So that catapulted me back into the corporate world. But what I then did was I did further training in change management. And because that was always the part of the project management side that I thought in all these acquisitions that happened in that organization that I was in, that it was never considering the people side of things. So it was before change management was a thing, right? In the sort of the early 2000s. And so I went into this combining the people side of things and how to facilitate growth and development and communicate and all of that. That's how I landed back there. That's a very long answer.
No, I absolutely love it, because it gives essence of your background and your life in East Germany, coming out here. We all go through divorces and life events and it's, what do you do? And you've done the counselling, and I think maybe it was meant to be the counselling side rather than coaching, because they go hand in hand in a lot of ways, right? But to know that the change management part is so aligned with counselling, I think, because it is about the people. And look at the journey you've been on. And we lean back into what we know in corporate world. We lean back into that because we know it, and we know how corporate worlds work. But I love the fact that you're now coming back to your true passion with the animals and the horses, and then bringing that change management and that counselling back into that to create the horse within. So with so did you did additional training? So I noticed on your website you did a number of counselling or training. Is there?
Yeah.
So you did the first 2 years and then something else?
Yeah. Lots of training in sort of person-centered narrative therapy, emotion-focused therapy. So really wanted to incorporate the somatic experience and the whole human experience in the way I approach any conversation with people, really. Because I truly believe if we're just staying in our cognitive space, and there's absolutely room for cognitive therapy. There's a big body of research behind the effectiveness. However, I believe we need to bring the whole human experience to life in the coaching and in the therapeutic space. So I've done a fair bit of that. I've done a whole lot of corporate training at the same time too. So in agile, in servant leadership, in lots of different areas of leadership, adaptive leadership. So I trained with adaptive cultures, for example. I've done a whole lot in the change management space, the standard ProSci, but also sort of the more agile and lean change management. And at the time, I don't know about you, Mozzie, but you kind of go, they all sit next to each other and you line them up and then you go, hang on, they're all connected.
Absolutely, really. They are.
Yeah.
And I think you're in just such an ideal position with what you've done with your change management and your counselling and coaching and your connection and your journey and things that have happened that have created to where you are today. So my next big question is, I know you've talked a lot about horses, but what is it about horses? We talk about the wisdom of the horse. We talk about, so what is it about horses? And I think you've got, did you say 6 down on the
I've got
down
6
on your phone?
horses.
Yeah. So
yes.
Talk to me about the horses.
Yeah. This is interesting because whenever someone asks me why horses, I just get flooded with so much stuff that I want to talk about that often nothing comes out. I Yes, it's like almost I just get this overwhelming rush of excitement and I want to tell everything about the horses, but let's just keep it nice and short. Why horses? So humans have spent time with horses and have engaged and used horses for millennia, right? So there's so many tales and myths and whole industries that have developed around this ability to carry stuff, pull stuff, build stuff, but also this the companionship and the wisdom of the horse. There's some connection between humans and horses that there's a lot of science and research behind it, but I keep saying there's also a bit of magic that I refuse to unpack because it feels like magic when it happens. And so there's when I have those experiences, and I've had a really profound experience, which then led me to train in that space a number of years ago, but also when I see that come on in other people, I just want to leave it there for them to make of it whatever they want to make of, rather than me then explaining this is what happened, I think, because I don't know for sure. So it can be, for example, just the energy shift, or it can be that a horse, comes into closeness without asking it to, but the human needing it. Or, I had a lady in a therapeutic session come, and she needed to do some grieving from a very, very long time ago when she wasn't able to grieve. So she's, basically trained herself to keep it all together. And then the closeness of my big Clyde mare, and then not wanting anything from her, just her sheer presence sort of started the tears, safely arriving, not in a big, overwhelming way, but just in a really quiet, testing into the sad space kind of way. And I remember my mare just leaning onto her and leaning her head into her arms. Wow. And my mare is not a cuddly horse or a horse that searches out human touch, but she was responding to this presence and this need of the human, and just created this witnessing that I couldn't have created in a therapeutic space. So that's an example. But back to the question of horses. So horses are, prey, play, and herd animals. And what that means from a herd point of view, they are always in connection and always in communication with each other. That's why it's really important to keep horses together. So they need to be able to share a big space with each other where they can move in and out of relationship and connection. But they're also they're prey animals. So that means that they're highly sensitive, highly attuned to their environment, and they're always scanning for danger. So that when, the mountain lion comes up, someone sees the mountain lion somewhere, there needs to be a split second of decision making and, staying, because, oh no, actually, that was just a little fox. Or no, this is a mountain lion and we need to run. Because if horses make a wrong judgment and constantly run off, they're using up all their energy. And in the environment that they would naturally have, live, they're not finding much food. They're walking for miles and miles every day to nibble on a few dried up grasses. So the way we keep them is actually not, how they would normally live in the nature. So then therefore, this idea to really quickly tense up and mobilize all energy, but if the danger isn't real, to be able to release that tension through an out breath, through just going, and the horse will do it. And then they go back to grazing. And so the beautiful thing about that is that for us humans, this is a really important differentiator, whether we're going to be healthy or whether we're going to constantly hold on to that tension of danger, perceived danger, and not let go of it numerous times a day. So the horses teach that. next to reading our energy, reading our emotions, because they have to decide when someone walks onto the paddock, is this person safe or not? And they mirror that back to us in an instant, like without screening, without going, but I don't want to hurt this person's feeling. And for example, on the weekend I had a young girl over, and she wanted to explore relationship. And so she was looking after one of the mares, and then the mare just walked away. And so that gave room for conversation about rejection and how that felt in that moment. And then for her to learn that the horse just felt like going. Horses don't hold grudges. Horses don't make judgments at whether they like you or not. They just go, okay, thank you, I've had enough. So awesome. There's a richness in the interaction with horses that teaches humans, if we're open to it, so many little and big things.
Which I'm fascinated about this. I'm fascinated about this work, and I'm learning so much from you and the connection. But I know that your passion has been created. So your little face lighting up then when you started talking about the horses, and that you can see your energy change when you started talking about that, which I think is beautiful. So the horse within was created, and I'd like to know the essence of the naming of the horse within, but also you're utilising your farm, and your space down in in Gippsland.
South Gippsland. Yeah.
South Gippsland. And you're also creating workshops and programs. So I really want to get into what you do and how it works, and all of that sort of stuff, if you can share a little bit of that detail.
We do. And thanks for giving me the opportunity, because obviously I do love talking about it. So the horse within was the sort of the name that came to life when I did my training in Daylesford, which was an intensive training in equine assisted psychotherapy and learning. So the coaching side and the therapeutic side with the horses. And I just had a moment where I realized that if we're bringing those qualities and the wisdom to life in ourselves, we can live better lives. We can make better decisions. We can look after our own well-being and groundedness and better, and therefore interact differently with other people as well. And so, what I want to create with this experience and people coming to my farm and sharing this space, which I think is really beautiful and therapeutic in itself, that people connect from an experiential point of view, connect with that part of themselves that is longing for connection, that is able to calm their own nervous system, that is able to set boundaries and communicate them, and through this experience, something changing in the body and the mind, so that they can then take that into their day-to-day, into their jobs, into their families, into their relationships. So that's how the name The Horse Within came to life. And the programs that I'm now offering are both therapy. I've got clients for therapy coming on a weekly basis, but the programs are basically for teams of carers. So I've got a Care for Carer workshop that's designed for caregiving teams to come and re-energize and ground themselves and have a day of just out of the daily demands of being a nurse or being a teacher or all of those professions that really take a lot of energy from people as they're giving to others. So that is something I'm really, really, really fond of bringing to life. So I look forward to working with those teams in that space. Then there is a team building program, which is called Becoming Horse. And that's also, how can we as team members be more horse with each other? What does that mean? And so, you know, we bring in aspects of self-awareness, relationship building, trust. How do you do that? And you do all that through, well, there is a bit of educational content in the beginning, and then there is, you know, activities with the horses, different ones, some of them slower, more quiet, more, you know, reflective, and then others are teams doing stuff with each other, and it's exciting and it's creative. It's very active. And then there's always reflection, time for reflection individually and as a group. And so, and the third one is a leadership development program. So I've run, through my work in the culture and change space, I've run many leadership development programs. And this one takes the learning that I had through running those, puts it into a horse context, whilst, you know, working on a challenge that this leadership team might be, you know, working on right now. So for example, they might be going through transformation, and they might be running a little bit out of puff, because transformation programs are long, and sometimes we wonder, where are we actually in this? You know, it's about refreshing the team spirit, refreshing our why, and refreshing our interactions with each other, and really honing those leadership skills that are needed to transform the organization or the team. So these are the three, but I'm also open to work with whatever a team wants to do. So if someone comes to me and said, we've had this dream of doing XYZ in the country for a day. So for example, we can offer a retreat and an overnight stay as well. We've got beautiful facilities here in Loch, which is where we're located, to you know, bring a 2 or 3 day event to life. Yeah, so that's where we're at right now.
Which is, there's perfect alignment out there, and the opportunities are endless, I reckon. I just really love this work, and you can see the benefits of just getting people together, getting them out of their normal environments. Yeah. But I'd love to come down and have a little look through and connect with some horses. I think it's just fascinating work. Yeah. And I love your background. I love your story. I love the fact that you've ignited this passion, and it was back in your childhood, but you've carried it through. Yeah, living it, you know, with the space around you on your farm is amazing, and then connecting it back to your, you know, your counselling and your coaching and your change management and all of that sort of stuff. Fantastic.
It's interesting because, isn't it, when we look back at our, you know, careers or paths that we've taken, at the time it seems incredibly messy and like we're jumping back and forth, and how's that even going to all make sense? And then you look back and you go, oh, it's all aligned actually.
And at the time, you know, you're navigating where you're going, but I think the beautiful thing about you and me to a degree is you are open to see what's coming your way, you know, and yeah, where the opportunity is about igniting that and fulfilling that passion and really helping others, I guess. I know that there's one little part we haven't touched on, but I know that I wanted to get there because of the work you were doing with children with ADHD, or there was some. So I'd love to talk about that, because it's, you know, it's not only the children, but it's the carers and the parents. So yeah, can we just touch on that briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, equine assisted therapy and learning is funded by the NDIS, which makes it available to a lot of families who would otherwise not be able to. Yeah, I've got a lot of kids come to me, and teenagers who might have an autism or ADHD diagnosis and really want to work on relationship building, reading emotions, expressing emotions, boundaries, you know, what's my yes and what's my no, and how do I communicate that? So that's through a program called the Horse Wisdom Program. And yes, it's for kids and teenagers, but it's also for grown-ups. So I work equally with grown-ups, with adults in that space as well. And one thing I want to mention is because it was an idea years ago, and now it's coming to life, and I've had the first organization participate in that. It's the Horse Wisdom sponsorship program, which is when you come and participate in a corporate program or a team program, you can add a small donation to your investment of the day, and then I can take on local young teenagers, children who would normally not be able to afford it, because we're, quite rural, and there's a different socio-demographic in a lot of places. So that means that I can, bring this program to life with kids and teens through the corporate world. And yeah, I'm so glad to say that I've got the first child is coming in 2 weeks, and it's fully sponsored by a team that came and did the team development day here.
Oh, wow. Look at that. That's just brilliant. Well done.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
it brings it full circle. Yeah.
And that's the cup filling stuff, right? That's the happy stuff.
Yeah. It's great.
Fabulous. Frankie, it's been lovely chatting with you today. Thanks for, I can't believe I've got this little tickle. But yes, thanks for coming along. It's been a pleasure to chat with you and learn all about it. I guess what we'll also say is that you've got your website, The Horse Within, with more information. At the bottom of this, video, I will put the details about your programs, and if anyone wants to contact you, they can direct message you or email you or whatever, and your details will be on that. But I just wanted to say thanks so much for your time, and I can't wait to get down there and have a look and maybe participate in one of your workshops. Sounds
that would
fantastic.
be fantastic. Would love to have you here, Mozzie, because we've been talking about this.
I know we have, and we'll connect and do some stuff together.
Thank you so much.
A pleasure. Thank you so much.
Great opportunity to talk to you, and would love to. Yeah, would love to see you down there, and a lot of other people too. So thanks for giving me the space and the time to talk about it.
Pleasure. We'll catch you soon.
Catch you soon. Take care.
Bye.